so many opportunities for us to celebrate our life and the planet and the goodness. It's everywhere. And take our attention off the negative, because, the things that we see, we have to be mindful, but we don't have to use the negative things we see as our main place we focus. We focus on God. That's what Jesus, I think, was showing us. Keep your attention on God. Hey, getting crucified is not exactly a good day in most people's life, right? But where did Jesus keep his attention? He kept his attention on the divine. And he said, you guys don't need to do this anymore because I've done it. I've shown you. Don't be afraid of death, for goodness sake. Don't sacrifice your soul to avoid death of the body. Protect your soul, he said. Protect your connection with God. You'll get a new body. I mean, I'm not advocating it, but bodies, that's what, when you come into form, you do have to get a body. On the other side, you don't need a body. But you do need a body when you come into... As he said,
all these things that I do, you should do, and even more. And I don't see enough people really taking that to heart, that Christ was just an example. He was creating an archetype that we could follow, and we can be Christ and do exactly these things that he did and more. And yet, it's wonderful. He's my mentor teacher, as is Mary. And we're delivered to that love and aware of it this week. Yet how many of us really, truly go, I'm going to embody that Christhood. I'm going to be that resurrected Christ. And how many people really even believe it's possible?
Cindy, that is the big question. And what I loved about Unity when I came and started my path to awakening was it invited me into a very traditional level of Christianity, at least with the language. But I wasn't in that Sunday service more than once or twice before I realized, this isn't old ways of thinking. This is new ways of seeing it. And it reminded me, after 30 years of study and the Bible being one of my major texts, is there's so much that Jesus taught that isn't even close to what we think of as Christianity. I want to be very clear. Jesus was really clear about this forgiveness thing. And when I hear people say they're Christians and they can't wait to get to war because somebody did something terrible, I go, just a minute here. Jesus had a few words about that. And he didn't say, hey, why don't you try forgiveness? He said, a new commandment I give you. Love one another and love your enemies. And the minute you get to loving your enemies, you don't have one. You can't love an enemy. Love shows you that the enemy is just a part of yourself that you haven't healed and blessed yet. And so one of the things, Jesus' great message is, he said, you've heard an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That's Old Testament, everybody who's listening, because here's what he said, and he couldn't have said it clearer. I say to you, how clear can that be? You've heard it said, but I'm saying to you, love your enemies, pray for them that hurt you, do good to them who spitefully use you, bless them that harm you. Why? Why? That you might be complete, that you might be full like your Father in heaven is full and complete. Because somebody can take your money, they can take your body, they can take your boyfriend, they can take your car, but they can't take your soul. And when you have a connection with God, you've got it all. You've got it all.
Well, Mary, so that's the story of what happens this Easter week is that, okay, if you really believe that, you can get crucified. If you really are going to take your enemy, love your enemy, they may crucify you, but one of the last things Christ said, I think second to last, on the cross was, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And that is a key. That is a key. Again, we go back to forgiveness. And it's not just in your mind saying, okay, I forgive you. I know it's important to forgive you, but it's in your heart. It's in your feelings. It's in your gut that you really can forgive. And it may take more than one day to do it. It's really the forgiveness that Christ had for being crucified. I know there's lots of interpretations. There's even people say he wasn't crucified, but it's symbolic, and it's the teaching that is the most important thing here. Is that yes, we can be, and God bless Judas because he agreed to take on the role that was needed to enact that story of betrayal and forgiveness.
Oh.
And I know
well, they're
that
holy brothers, you know that, and that
absolutely.
was a really tough assignment. Anybody that doubts Judas, I mean, clearly all of us have a Judas, and that's the life force that can't wait. You know, he saw Jesus raise the dead. He saw him teach the thousands. He saw him feed the multitudes. He knew he had the power. And Jesus knew he was listening to a higher power because what Jesus was about was transforming consciousness on the planet. But don't we all have that part where we're impatient, Cindy? I mean, you and me have never done that. We see a big plan, and then we start pushing the river. We start making it happen. I know that could happen. And that's the Judas in us. And Judas he was trying to force Jesus into stepping into that role that Jesus didn't come to do because he didn't become to be a political leader. He came, and God bless political leaders, he came to lift consciousness on planet Earth. He worked, and I want to pause because before Jesus was able to do that, he spent 18 years that we don't have information on, but we know he was practicing because at 12 years old, he had his spiritual awakening. And I know, Cindy, you had yours very early. I was quite a bit older this lifetime, but he was 12. And then 18 years, we don't hear anything until he's at a wedding feast with his mother. And do you remember this story, Cindy? Because 18 years, and now he's at a wedding feast. His mother's there. They've drunk all the wine. And his mother says to him, why don't you, Jesus, make some wine? And he says, Mom, my time hasn't yet come. And what did Mother do? This is why you love Mother Mary so much. She didn't even listen to her son. You know, he said, I'm not ready yet. It's not time yet. I've been practicing. And his mother, what did she say, Cindy? I just love it. She turns to the servant and says, whatever my son tells you to do, do it. And, you know, and that's what I feel the mother's telling me. You know, I saw that bumper sticker about 3 weeks ago, and I was literally in my mind asking, Mother, is this you? Because I had gotten some real direct guidance, and it was real clear. And right when I said, Mother, is this you, in my mind, I turn, and there's a car in the parking lot of Costco. I have the picture. I've shown it to you, and it says, just do it. Go up, and you see the letters, and right above the big just do it, there's the letters, whatever Jesus tells you to do, just do it, big letters, and then underneath Mother Mary, John 2, and that's the wedding feast. When my son and I went, oh, who is guiding us? Well, the wisdom of Christ and the mother saying, whatever Christ tells you to do, just do it. But, you know, don't we all need a little bit of a push now and then, the mother?
I wanted to bring this up, and I just really, really think this is part of the thing that's not discussed in Easter week that much. I mean, Mary was a master. She was a divine master who was enlightened, and she had union with God. She was joined as one with God, and she was immaculate in the concept. She had an immaculate concept. That immaculate concept brought about and delivered the Christ because it was from the one source, and that's why it was immaculate. However, she knew what was going to be happening, yet there she was with her son dying, and there she was, and knowing that she had to hold that light, and she had to hold the story for fulfillment of the prophecy, and she held it. And of course, I love the great picture from Michelangelo of her in the Pieta holding Christ in her. And looking that love, knowing that this was meant to be, it had to be, and yet you still go through death and transformation. It doesn't mean, even though you go through death and transformation and know the whole story, it doesn't mean you don't see that body dropping and going, wow, the body dropped. That's there. You still go through that.
The heart breaking. And, Cindy, I just caught this, and I'm wondering if this is what's coming through. We are standing watching the world break apart. We're watching bombs fall on human beings every single day. You know, we can have any opinion we want about the refugees, but they're human beings who literally have had their homes being bombed for 2, 3, and 4 years. They have a leader who's actually used chemicals on his own people. So I'm just saying there are really difficult things. Our heart breaks, and yet we stand as Mary stood, and Mary Magdalene and the other woman. They stood and bore witness when the crucifixion was happening. I don't think there was a joy in Mary's heart. Her heart was breaking, but her faith and her love. And I don't know that she fully knew then that her son would be resurrected. I don't know. I mean, you're talking.
I really believe she did, because she was a master and she was part of the plan. And with the union with God, she knew she knew the purpose of what her life was to be and what Christ's life was to be. And that's why I always question that song, Mary, Did You Know Your Son, that was written for as a Christmas song. Yes, Mary, I really believe Mary did know. Mary knew implicitly the role when Gabriel
soul knows too. Our souls know too, if we can get quiet enough. And let's remember, Mary was 13 years old. She had what she was a virgin, meant not whether she was sexually active. It was a virgin was someone who had a whole soul or an integral relationship with the divine. Just like, if it's virgin wool, you don't have any polyester in it. It's wool. And she had that devotion. And each of us, it begins with that, Cindy. But Christ is in every one of us, and I don't doubt at all she was a master. But there's evidence. It was Gabriel that told her she would bear a child, and she said, "I'm the handmaiden of the Lord. Do with me what you will." Some part of her soul had already made that deep commitment, and you and I can make it today. There's nothing greater that we could give anybody for Easter. I was going to say Christmas because it is that story, than to just this day love God with all our hearts. Ask the divine, whether you call it Mother or Christ or Buddha or nature or however you access that, with a whole soul devotion to the infinite, to love what is. We position ourselves for enlightenment. We position ourselves to be truly helpful. And all the parts of our shadow, and who doesn't have that? Okay, some of you listening, you may not. You call Cindy and she'll put you on the next radio program. But anybody else that still has the shadow out there, the best thing you can do is love the Christ of God in you. And it will reveal your shadow with such compassion that you can shift. And you're talking about transformation. And I shared with you last week the gift that I've received from your commitment to Mary is the mother makes the corrections so gently. The mother's voice when she points out, that might be gossip. Why don't you stop? She doesn't say, stop, you're gossip. She says, honey, that isn't who you want to be. And Cindy, that's the greatest thing I've gotten out of Mother Mary is she's so lovingly kind when she's correcting. And we must be corrected, if we can be ready to serve. So it's both true. So thank you for this wonderful subject.
If we take that gentle, I love that word gentle, because sometimes I am not, I'm more of a fire and air person, and I don't necessarily always have the gentle quality, but you know what? That's something. I think that's something that gets transformed as well.
That gets transformed, doesn't it?
Yeah, with
because
a little
I
bit
think
of time.
People would.
And
how long have you been working on it, darling?
with our wonderful gifts of that we learned that humble us, and there's so many great lessons that do that in our lives, and the ones we fight the most and don't like usually are the ones that are the greatest.
Big ones.
The big ones.
That can the gift of all the people in our lives that we are trying to get out of our lives. If we could just turn and look at them, or just with all the love, we would see the parts of ourselves that could be healed just by loving them or loving ourselves. It's the same. You say it all. It's the same. I start to love me. I have to love you. I start to love you. Ooh, I have to love me. I can't love you without loving me. This is the glory of waking up. what I give, I receive. Yay, yay. Yay, yay. So let's all give love and